So now that you understand the basic idea of the architecture that we're going to create and the reasons for creating the architecture in that manner, let's talk a little bit about some of the implementation details that we're going to be using when we actually go ahead and try to create our automation framework. So you may have heard the term page object model before. This is a common term in the automation community, which basically refers to the idea of mapping your test framework or the model of your test framework to the model of your pages. So in an application, you may have a series of different pages in a web application, and those pages are going to be modeled in our framework the same way. So we're going to create some mappings between them. So the idea here is that, for example, let's look at our login page. If you have a login page, we're going to create a class inside of our test framework called login page, and it's going to have some of the same functionality that your login page has, and it's going to be responsible for being able to get the elements that exist on that login page. For example, a username field and a password field and a login button, and it's going to manipulate that. And it's going to work at the highest level possible. That's what makes a good automation framework. So for example, instead of having a method on this login page that our tests are going to use that says get username field or enter text in username field, we're going to have a login method on the login page, and we're going to pass in a username and password, and it's automatically going to know how to insert the username and password into the correct fields and push the login button. So this is going to aid in our automation. This is where that coffee maker example comes into play. Part of this idea of the page object model is designing this high-level API. You're thinking about designing your framework for your tests to use in the same way that a user might use the web page. And by doing it that way, you make it very simple to write your tests and to understand your tests. So you can see here also that pages in a page object model don't have to necessarily map to exact pages in the application. In this instance, I have a shopping cart example here. And maybe you have a shopping cart on every single page. Maybe it's in your header, but it's a section of your web application. So it's going to map to its own logical object in your framework. And that shopping cart is going to have methods that your tests can call and use that are going to work on the shopping cart just like a user would.